Welcome to StickMan Explains.
The main lie of economics, the secret history of money. When you hold a bill in your hand, what do you think you possess? Paper, code, or something more? Humanity has built entire empires on these thin sheets of paper and lines in banking systems. We believe they have value, so deeply that we are willing to work for months, years, decades, just to obtain these coveted symbols. For many thousands of years, people have sought a universal equivalent for this value. Today, the entire modern world stands on an invisible foundation of trust and agreements that exist only in people's minds. But what if that foundation cracks? What if one day we wake up and the numbers in our accounts suddenly lose all meaning? We live in a world where everything can be bought. A house, a car, a seat on a plane, even an organ for transplant. But almost no one thinks about how the thing we pay with is structured: money. It's not just coins and banknotes, not just zeros and ones in a banking app. It's a contract, a social agreement, a collective belief, and at the same time, perhaps one of the most massive illusions humanity has ever created. Or not. What if it's still the most reliable code in human history? A code tested by centuries, wars, crises. A code on which the entire global economy still stands. Today, we'll explore where money comes from, what makes it real, and what will become the new currency of trust. Imagine an ancient settlement. Smoke from campfires, the smell of earth and clay. One person extends a bag of grain to another, hoping to receive an axe. But the blacksmith doesn't need grain, he needs arrows. And the archer has his own needs. This was the chaos of barter. Such a simple form of exchange worked in close-knit communities where everyone knew the value of a neighbor's labor. But there were obvious fundamental problems. How do you value labor if one person's goods spoil in a matter of days, while another's creation lasts for years? How do you preserve value for the future if grain can rot and cloth wears out? This intractable puzzle hung in the air. And then humanity found a solution. Commodity money emerged. Not an abstraction, but objects that had inherent value. In Africa and Asia, these were cowrie shells. In ancient Greece, copper ingots from which weapons could be forged. In China, bronze knives and spades became the first coins. In Rus, the peace and wealth came from the furs of wild animals, providing warmth. This was a brilliant compromise. Value not just in a promise, but in the thing itself. But even they had a flaw. They could be damaged, lost. Their value depended on many circumstances. The world needed something truly universal. And that something was found: gold. The shine was captivating, rare, rust-proof, eternal. An ingot was easy to divide, meaning it was easy to pay with. Gold became a symbol of wealth. For centuries, global trade revolved around it. Tons of precious metal on ships risked crossing the seas to replenish royal coffers. Blood was shed for the right to control its extraction. It seemed this system would last forever. However, its time also passed. The rapid development of global trade required a lighter and more flexible instrument. In the metal-scented bank vaults, an idea was born. Why carry heavy gold when you can trust? Thus, paper banknotes appeared. Initially, these were modest receipts. Pay the bearer of this such and such gold. This is how the gold standard worked. An era when every bill was not just paper, but an iron promise, backed by the presence of real metal in the vault. Trust proved unbreakable. People carried light stacks of banknotes in their pockets instead of bulky chests. The world believed in paper, but the 20th century brought upheaval. World wars and the Great Depression demanded expenses that all the gold in the world could not cover. The system creaked and groaned at the seams. And a fateful day arrived. August 15th, 1971. U.S. President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. His words sounded like thunder out of a clear sky. The dollar could no longer be exchanged for gold. This event went down in history as the Nixon shock. In an instant, the gold standard collapsed. The promise transformed into something new. Paper money began to exist on its own, not as a receipt for metal, but as a value assigned by the state. It was given the name fiat, from the Latin "let it be." Its power now rested not on the glint of gold in a safe, but on the fragile, intangible trust in those who printed it. Trust in the flag, in the government, in economic power. But what if that trust collapses? History knows the answer. By the way, if you want to understand more deeply how money, inflation, and the economy work here and now, subscribe to Falcon Finance. It's a channel where we explain, in simple terms and without fluff, how the economy is structured, what truly lies behind news headlines, and how to make smarter decisions. Now, having learned how the economy works today, let's look at how we arrived at our current tools. If fiat money freed us from the weight of metal, the next step was even more radical: the complete abandonment of physical cash. The idea of storing value not in a leather wallet, but as numbers in a bank account, began to take shape in the mid-20th century. Imagine America in 1950. Cardboard cards, diners club, the first harbingers that allowed payments in restaurants and hotels without cash. A little later, plastic from American Express, and in 1958, the revolutionary bank AmeriCard, the progenitor of Visa. It was a breakthrough in convenience, but the real technological leap happened in the 60s. IBM engineers gave the world the magnetic stripe. Now, owner data could be stored and read automatically. The world of money accelerated. In the 80s, ATMs, EMV chip cards, and PIN codes appeared, making payments safer. But money was still tied to plastic. In parallel, the invisible arteries of the financial world were created. In 1973, the SWIFT network was born, a protocol that allowed money transfers between countries in hours, not weeks. The late 90s opened a new era: electronic payments over the internet. These names became symbols of a new reality. Further, more, and even faster, mobile payments and transfers by phone number. Money became more and more ephemeral. And in recent years, the ultimate convenience seemed to arrive: biometric payments. Just show your face or use your fingerprint. In China, Alipay and WeChat Pay are testing 3D facial recognition in cafes and stores. In Russia, FacePay is being implemented. A momentary glance at the terminal camera, and the payment is complete. In the USA and EU, biometrics more often serve as an additional layer of security. The advantages are obvious: speed, no need for cards or phones, difficulty of stealing biometric data. But there is a dark side. Biometrics are unique and immutable. If data falls into the wrong hands, changing the password will be impossible. And most importantly, this system is absolutely centralized. Bank operators see every one of your transactions and can cut off access at any moment. How does this wonder work without a miracle? You tap your card, phone, or scan your face. The terminal encrypts the data and sends it to the acquiring bank. The bank verifies authenticity. The request goes over the Visa, MasterCard, or Mir network to the issuing bank. The issuer checks the balance, history, suspicious operations. The response is approved. And all of this takes less than 3 seconds. It seems like magic, reliable and fast, but at its heart is a key feature: centralization. Every payment, every transfer passes through a bank, a payment system, regulators. This means that at any moment, at someone's will, your transaction can be stopped, checked, and blocked. You don't fully own your money. You merely rent access to it. Today, about 80% of all payments worldwide are digital. In the US, cash is used in only 14% of cases. And even then, it's mostly for small expenses. In Australia, it's only 6%. Russia is not far behind with 87% cashless payments, 12% of which are via QR code or biometrics. The rise of cashless payments means transparency, fighting the shadow economy, and increased taxes. But the downside is vulnerability. Turn off the lights, paralyze the internet, and the economy grinds to a halt. Stores don't sell, buyers panic. Dependence on digital infrastructure makes the world fragile to attacks and blockages. But even in this world of instant digital payments, the most important secret of money is not hidden in the terminal. The real magic, the real power is elsewhere. Who decides how much of this money even exists? The answer lies in an ancient but relevant mechanism: seigniorage. Who actually creates money today? Formerly, central banks. They decide how much money the economy needs, set the key interest rate, fight inflation, and can turn on the printing press, issuing new banknotes and coins. But here's a crucial nuance that few people think about. The vast majority of money in the modern world is created not by central banks, but by commercial banks. And they do this through the magical mechanism of credit creation. Imagine you go to the bank for a mortgage. The bank doesn't open a safe and pull out a stack of money. It simply creates an entry in your account. This money didn't exist a second ago. It is born at the moment the loan is issued, out of thin air. In return, the bank receives your commitment to repay the debt with interest. And when you repay the loan, this created money disappears from the system. This is how the modern money machine works, and it all rests on the same trust. Trust in banks, in the economy, and in the state behind it all. But there is another way the government profits from money itself: seigniorage. This is the difference between the face value of a bill and its production cost. Imagine that to print a $100 note, it costs only about $2, counting paper, ink, security, and the labor itself. The remaining $98 are pure profit for the state. The more money printed, the higher the income. The temptation is great, but the flip side of seigniorage and credit creation is terrible. If too much cheap money is printed, there will be more of it in the economy than actual goods and services. And then prices will creep up, and the purchasing power of your savings will melt away. This is inflation. History is full of tragic examples. Hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, the devaluation of the German mark in the 1920s. It all started with the temptation of easy money for quick profit and ended in collapse. Why? Because money is not metal or paper. It is trust. We accept it because we believe. Tomorrow, for this piece of paper or number on a screen, we will buy bread, fill up the tank, pay rent. We believe that a salary is real value, not just a number. We believe that taxes are a contribution to the common good. But what if that belief collapses? Unfortunately, this has happened more than once, and those events were truly horrifying. Germany, 1923, a picture of apocalypse. People push wheelbarrows loaded with stacks of banknotes. Not to buy a house, loaves of bread. Prices double every day, then every hour. Hyperinflation devours savings, wages, pensions at the speed of a wildfire. Trillions of marks become trash faster than the ink on them can dry. Despair gives birth to monstrous absurdity. People start papering walls with money like wallpaper. It's cheaper than buying real wallpaper, or they burn it in stoves. Banknotes burn longer and hotter than the firewood they could buy. This was more than an economic crisis. It was a collapse of the very foundation of society, faith in the state. Zimbabwe, 2008. Inflation reaches 79 billion% per month. An absolutely inconceivable figure. A $100 trillion banknote is still not enough to buy a loaf of bread. Despair leads to the same absurdity as in Weimar Germany. People burn money in stoves, simply because banknotes are cheaper than firewood. The smell of burning paper becomes a symbol. It's not just the currency that disappears, but the very confidence in the future. Venezuela, our days. People go to the store with bags of bills and leave with only a couple of pounds of rice. Prices change not once a month, not once a week, but several times a day. Money turns into waste paper faster than you can spend it. When currency ceases to hold value, the entire everyday economy collapses. People resort to barter or the black market. The savings of millions evaporate, eaten by inflation in a matter of days. And the most terrifying thing is that the habit of trusting the state itself disappears. A flight begins. People seek support where they still see value. In gold, in dollars, in real estate, in cryptocurrencies. The lesson of history is harsh and unequivocal. When the state loses trust, its currency dies with it. And with it, pensions, salaries, and the very sense of stability on which society rests. The reason is no longer as important. Whether it's irresponsible monetary policy, as in Germany in the 1920s, or a political crisis, as in Zimbabwe or Venezuela. It was in such an atmosphere of distrust and doubt that 2008 arrived. The world faced not just localized hyperinflation, but a global crisis of trust. The largest financial markets plunged into chaos. Lehman Brothers, a legendary investment bank with a 158-year history, having survived the U.S. Civil War and the Great Depression, collapsed in a matter of days. This wasn't just a company bankruptcy. It was the collapse of a symbol. Offices were emptied. Traders, who just yesterday were determining the fate of markets, carried out boxes of personal belongings amidst widespread panic. Stocks turned to dust. A wave of terror swept across the globe. Stock indices fell. Banks and companies closed. Millions of people lost their jobs. Kilometer-long queues formed at ATMs. People desperately tried to withdraw their savings before the system completely collapsed. Millions of families watched as their pension savings, investments, and deposits turned into nothing. And governments rushed to rescue giants, injecting billions of dollars into them. And the most terrifying thing is that these funds came from the taxes of the very people standing in line at the ATMs. Absurdity and bitterness. Trust in the financial system, built over decades, was undermined. People asked terrifying questions. If banks with a century of history collapse in a week, and governments can simply create trillions out of air, why should we trust them? It was at this moment, in October 2008, that a strange email appeared in a mailing list for cryptographers. It contained a link to a 9-page PDF file. The title sounded like a challenge. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The author hid behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Who was he? A lone genius? A group of enthusiasts? A government agent? This document was not a dry technical manual. It was a manifesto, a colossal shot fired at the heart of the old system. It described a radically new concept of money, a system without intermediaries, without central banks, without a single issuer. The rules were embedded in code. Trust was based not on politicians' promises, but on mathematics and cryptography. A model where currency couldn't be printed on a whim, where every transaction was recorded in a distributed, transparent, and secure ledger. The blockchain. For many, understanding this era isn't the easiest task. The era of digital money, where Bitcoin became the first bold, revolutionary experiment. Bitcoin's heart, the proof-of-work principle. This isn't just an algorithm. It's a philosophy, the very essence of its existence. The issuance of new coins is strictly limited by mathematics. No central bank or finance minister can simply turn on the machine and print more bitcoins. Each coin is the result of titanic computational work. Imagine, all over the world, in noisy data centers, hot garages, Amidst the humming transformers of power plants, thousands upon thousands of computers are competing in a global race. Their goal is to be the first to solve an incredibly complex mathematical problem, to find that unique hash. The winner receives a reward, new bitcoins. This process is called mining. It requires resources, gigawatts of electricity, tons of equipment, powerful cooling systems. From the perspective of a traditional financier, wild inefficiency. But it is precisely this inefficiency that is a brilliant protective mechanism. It makes Bitcoin resilient. It's impossible to forge the blockchain. It's impossible to centrally control emission. Everything is distributed. Everything is transparent. Everything is subject to the cold logic of the algorithm. Trust in code. The first famous story from the real world sounds like a parable today. On May 22, 2010, programmer Laszlo Hanyecz paid 10,000 bitcoins for 2 pizzas. Today, that amount is equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars. Back then, it was a naive but incredibly important gesture. Can you actually buy something real with these digital coins? Then came the euphoria, the ICO boom of the mid-2010s. Startups issued tokens, raising millions of dollars for ideas, often even without a real prototype. The world was swept away by promises of a new economy. And in 2017, the bubbles burst. Prices plummeted. Thousands of projects disappeared. Investors lost billions. A harsh reckoning for gambling. But the ideas embedded by Satoshi did not die. New, powerful players arrived. Large banks, investment funds, tech giants. Bitcoin futures appeared. It was discussed in parliaments and courts. Bitcoin ceased to be an underground geek toy. It became a full-fledged, albeit risky, asset of the global financial market. Yes, it is still volatile. Its price can jump and plummet by tens of % in a day. But it has become a powerful symbol of financial independence. The idea of digital property, a deep distrust of traditional institutions. For some, a tool for speculation. For others, a safe haven, a refuge from inflation and the arbitrary actions of central banks. It divides, it provokes, but it is already part of our reality. This new reality makes us wonder, where does money truly originate? Two systems offer geometrically opposite answers. In the world of fiat, in the bustling, guarded workshops of central bank printing houses, stacks of brand new bills with watermarks roll off the assembly line. The production cost of a paper bill is a meager 14 cents. But as soon as the necessary symbols are applied, it magically transforms into $100. The central bank injects this money into the economy through banks, loans, and government spending, trying to control its quantity. The advantage is flexibility. In a crisis, more money can be quickly printed to try and revive the economy. The disadvantage is inflation. The more new money, the less old money is worth. Value is diluted. In the world of Bitcoin, no printing presses. No decrees from above deciding the fate of the money supply. Instead, huge farms humming with forests of video cards or specialized ASIC processors. Miners spend megawatts of electricity. They battle the heat, keep equipment running 24/7, participating in that same race for the hash. The cost of Bitcoin is determined not by paper and ink, but by the price of electricity. The complexity of the algorithm and the power of the hardware. This is mining. In the fiat system, emission is a tool of politics. It can be expanded or contracted by decision of the authorities. In Bitcoin, emission is hard-coded into the algorithm. The total number of coins is limited 21 million. The reward to miners per block is halved every 4 years. This is called halving. It's an ironclad defense against arbitrary inflation. But this generates another problem: wild volatility. The exchange rate can soar or plummet by tens of percent in a few hours due to news, speculative demand, or panic selling. Ultimately, two systems, two philosophical approaches. Fiat, trust in the state, the ability to maneuver the money supply and manage the economy. But at the same time, it is also the risk of devaluation. Mining trust in the algorithm, predictability of issuance, protection from manual intervention, and a constant game on the market with high volatility. But while this philosophical confrontation continues, governments are already creating what could become a compromise, or the ultimate victory of one of the models. Over the past few years, governments worldwide have embarked on creating CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. If a banknote is a physical carrier of value, and a bank account is a record in a private bank system, then a CBDC is a new level. Digital money issued directly by the central bank, bypassing private intermediaries. China is leading the race. The digital yuan has been tested since 2020 in dozens of cities, used in transport systems, supermarkets, and online stores. The European Union is developing a digital euro with the promise of implementation by 2027. Sweden, the e-krona is already in pilot, being tested in conjunction with mobile applications. In Russia, an experiment with the digital dollar started in 2023. Individuals can open a digital wallet directly in the bank's app. At the same time, the issuer is the Bank of Russia itself. For the user, everything looks simple. A smartphone app, transfers in seconds, no cash, minimal commissions. But convenience comes at a price. Every transaction is recorded. Every payment is transparent for the state. This means an account or part of the funds can be instantly frozen. Spending can be tracked down to the penny. Certain purchases can be restricted, for example, introducing limits on alcohol or foreign travel. Taxes and fines can be automatically debited. This is what is critically important to discern through the veil of euphoria from high technologies. Digital currency is not just new money. It is a tool for financial control and social management. At the other extreme is DeFi, a world without intermediary banks or government servers. You can essentially be your own bank, but all responsibility rests solely with you. Losing a key is equivalent to a complete loss of money. A mistake in a transaction, there's no going back. Freedom is absolute and frighteningly risky. And here's the main question that will define the future of our finances. What do we value more? Absolute security and predictability, guaranteed by the state, but at the cost of total control and loss of privacy? Or financial freedom and independence, but at the cost of full personal responsibility and high risks? Everyone answers this question for themselves. But one thing is clear, the past of money is the key to understanding what it can become tomorrow. So we have traveled from cowrie shells to binary codes on servers, from the glint of gold in royal coffers to Bitcoin, existing only on the network. And each time, the value of money was born not from the technology itself, but from people's trust. Once, a shell became worth something because the tribe decided it was rare and beautiful. Gold became wealth because nations agreed to value it. The dollar became a world currency because millions believe in the economic power of the US. Bitcoin became a symbol of financial independence because people all over the planet decided they were willing to store their capital there. Technologies can and will change. New forms of money will emerge, but the principle is eternal. Money works only when we believe in it and voluntarily choose to use it. How to preserve and multiply your money in this ever-changing world. You don't need to be a financial genius. You need to be attentive and responsible. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify assets across currencies, banks, and instruments. Inflation is real. Simply saving is no longer a strategy. Research what you invest in, even if it's a deposit in banks. Pay attention to cybersecurity. In the digital world, This is the basis of fund security. Money is not a lottery. It is a system that requires understanding and responsibility. And the sooner you start treating it that way, the more stable your financial tomorrow will be. If this video helped you look at money from a different angle, please like it. If you want more such analyses, subscribe. And in the comments, write what you trust today: banks, cash, crypto, or something else. Until next time, see you in the next episodes.